The Amazing Spider-Man movies may have been a little bit unwanted, at times mediocre, and at other times outright awful, but no one can ever accuse the TASM movies of being unambitious. Sony had huge plans to make an entire Spider-Man cinematic universe to rival the MCU, and while I did make a video covering most of their plans, there was one I omitted that I thought was pretty interesting, and that was an Amazing Spider-Man prequel movie. So, what if it happened? After the first two Amazing Spider-Man movies, Sony had full intentions of franchising the absolute hell out of Spider-Man. TASM 2 featured quite a few Easter eggs and unresolved plot lines that would have been explored more in future sequels and spin-offs. However, one thing that Sony hadn't anticipated was the level of scorn that would be directed at the decision to kill Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy off at the end of TASM 2. Her and Andrew Garfield's chemistry was often regarded as the best part of the TASM movies, and people just honestly weren't ready to let her go. Now, the plan was actually to continue on without her originally, and have Shailene Woodley debut as Mary Jane Watson in TASM 3. In fact, she was actually supposed to debut in TASM 2, but they cut her scenes out. However, they were also briefly toying with the idea of instead bringing Gwen back to life by using Spider-Man's blood, but this would actually have turned her into Carnage and introduced the symbiotes into the TASM universe. However, this idea would thankfully be shot down in favor of doing something equally strange, making a prequel movie. This idea for a prequel actually would have been more of an interquel. It would have taken place in between The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and would have seen Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone return for a third time to the roles of Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy respectively. It would show us their immediate relationship after getting back together at the end of TASM 1. We'd see Peter still in high school and see an unlikely friendship form between him and Flash Thompson, and we'd see Peter become more acquainted with the Stacy family. Therefore, we'd also start seeing the guilt that Peter starts to feel when he dates Gwen after the death of her father, which would further build up their breakup at the beginning of TASM 2. Now, Sony went into this movie hoping to bring more closure to Gwen Stacy's death, after their stop-start relationship kind of annoyed people. Now, this movie was also set to be the movie that bridged the tone between the grittiness of the first movie and the more lighthearted tone of the second one. It might have featured the original TASM suit making a comeback and show us how the suit changed in between the movies. The movie officially would have been titled The Amazing Spider-Man Kraven and been released in the summer of 2016. Competing with Warner Brothers' Suicide Squad at the box office. As far as the main villain's concerned, it was going to be Chris Cooper's Norman Osborn. Norman's Green Goblin would foreshadow his son taking up the mantle in the sequel, and show this connection between Spider-Man and Green Goblin that already existed before TASM 2. Now, in this movie, Norman Osborn would, for unknown reasons, possibly tying into the spy storyline of Peter's parents that we all just love so much, hire Kraven to hunt Spider-Man down and bring him back to Oscorp Industries. The plan was then for Norman to use Spider-Man's blood to turn into the ultimate Spider-Man version of Green Goblin, as in a literal monster, who Spider-Man would then defeat. Norman would then return to his usual form, but find that his disease has accelerated, and he doesn't have much time left to live, at which point he calls his son Harry back to New York, setting up the events of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So now, what do I think of this Amazing Spider-Man prequel movie, The Amazing Spider-Man Kraven? I have mixed feelings. On one hand, I think it sounds like a good idea, because, if I'm being honest with you, the transition from dark and gritty first TASM movie to really lighthearted second TASM movie really felt forced to me. It felt really unnatural, and seeing this in-between movie to kind of show the gradual shift in his character and the franchise's tone would have been very welcome for that reason. I think it would have been great to see more of Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield's chemistry, even if by this point I do believe they were broken up. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comments. I don't follow that kind of stuff, honestly. But if they weren't together, then I do believe they're professionals and they would still make it work. Chris Cooper is Norman Osborn. He really got shortchanged in TASM 2. I think we can all agree on that. He's a really, really good actor, and he really deserved more screen time, especially compared to Dane DeHaan, who I know is not a bad actor, but he was not very good in TASM 2, I'm not gonna lie. He had his moments. He wasn't that bad, but he wasn't as good as the screenwriters clearly thought he was either. So it would have been nice to see more of his father, seeing his father before he gets sick, Now, I know that him turning into a literal monster would be controversial, but it would help to differentiate him from Willem Dafoe's for sure. And also, it kind of makes sense because, Rhys Ifans used, Peter's formula and he turned into a monster. So it kind of makes sense for the same thing to happen when Norman Osborn tries to use Peter's blood. I just think that makes a lot of sense. And this is going to be really, really, really controversial, but if I'm being honest with you, I really like the first TASM suit. I think it gets way too much hate. I don't care if people say it looks like a basketball. I think it looks really cool. And I would like to see more of it, honestly, especially in brighter lighting, because that basically the entirety of the first TASM movie took place at night. So it would have been nice to see his suit more in the daytime. And as for Kraven the Hunter being another one of the main villains, I think that sounds great. I think Kraven the Hunter, the fact that we've gone this long and Kraven still hasn't been in the movies is kind of nuts. I know it's always been wrong place, wrong time. He was going to be in one of the TASM movies and then he was cut because the TASM movies got canceled. And then, in the MCU, Sony owned the rights to him and they don't want to share, so they're doing their own movie with Aaron Taylor Johnson. I'm well aware of all the stuff that's kept Kraven from being in the movies, but still, I feel like it's been so long and he deserves to be in it. And this wouldn't have been a bad way to introduce him. I kind of like the idea of him being this bounty hunter brought in from a foreign country to hunt down Spider-Man. Even if that's not how it goes in the comics, how, he normally goes after Spider-Man because he's the deadliest catch. But, I don't know how well that would translate into the movies, I admit. It would have to be done really well with a really good actor. And I admit, I don't know who is going to play Kraven. I heard it was going to be Shane West, but I really don't know for sure. Shane West definitely, I think, probably would have done a pretty good job. He's not my choice personally, but he probably would have done an alright job. With the right script behind him, of course. But again, this is Sony. Can you guys tell I'm a big fan of Sony yet? Overall, I don't think this is a bad idea. I think it would be really confusing. People are going to watch this after the first two movies, and they're not going to it'll be years, I think, before people get used to watching TASM 1, then Kraven, then TASM 2. That's just a little confusing in my opinion. I think that would kind of fuck with people just a little bit. And I'm not entirely sure if this was the way to go. I do feel like this actually would have been better as TASM 2 in general. Because, yeah, I'm of the opinion Gwen Stacy was killed off too early. Her death was done really well, but they could have built it up a lot more. The Green Goblin had only just been introduced when he killed her, and that didn't really do anything for me. It's supposed to be this emotional thing, and it is, but it could have been so much more if we cared about the Green Goblin's rivalry with Spider-Man. And we honestly don't. They don't give him nearly enough time to form this iconic rivalry. So seeing an extra movie in between to build up, Peter and Gwen's chemistry, I think would have made things a little bit better. Especially if it's this idea that, Peter defeated his father, and then in a way he might actually be a little bit out for revenge. That's something I could imagine Sony retconning in there. But overall, would I have really wanted to see this movie? Not really, because if reports are to be believed, Andrew Garfield was not going to be playing Spider-Man anymore after the third movie. Apparently he was, not getting along with Sony, and Sony were planning to get rid of him after he fulfilled his 3-movie contractual obligation. And so this would have been his last movie, and that would have been a little weird. But then again, that would kind of make sense, because then this would bring closure to the first chapter of Peter's life, his relationship with Gwen, his early days as Spider-Man, and then when they bring in Mary Jane and Black Cat, they can kind of start over fresh with a new actor. So I get what they were going for, but I don't think it would have been wise. I think I would personally just try to stick with Andrew Garfield. Differences be damned and all. But overall, I do think this is more of a unique curiosity than something I genuinely want. Because think about it, if this movie had been made, Tom Holland never would have played Spider-Man. And is it really worth it? I'm sorry, but I don't think it is. Do I think Andrew Garfield got the short end of the stick as Spider-Man? Yes, I do. And I'm making this video before No Way Home comes out. I sincerely hope Andrew Garfield is in No Way Home and that he redeems his take on the character. Because he's really not that bad. He's a really good Spider-Man. He might be my least favorite of the three, but he's not bad. They've actually done really good at choosing Spider-Man actors over the years. It's just that the movies he was in needed better writers, and they needed somebody who knew how to pace the story a little bit better. And this movie might have ended up being that fresh start that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man needed, but then again, he was supposed to leave. So, like, it's a little confusing. And as I said, this movie probably would have led to Tom Holland never playing him, and I just don't think it's worth it. I'm sorry. Tom Holland, he's so good as Spider-Man. He's not my favorite. Tobey Maguire will probably always be my favorite Spider-Man, but Tom Holland is a very close second. And no offense to Andrew Garfield, who I really, really hope is in No Way Home so he can redeem his take. No offense to him, but if I had to choose between him getting a third one and Tom Holland getting all of his, I would have to choose Tom Holland. I'm really sorry. I know that's going to ruffle some people's feathers, but that's just how I feel. I think it was ultimately for the best that things went the way they did. But this movie would have been interesting. Maybe eventually we will see this movie. Like, maybe if Sony does what they keep threatening to do and they take Spider-Man back, they'll, work out the differences with Andrew Garfield. They'll bring him back and they'll do this. Do another movie with Emma Stone. I don't honestly mind that. That would be kind of cool, as long as it doesn't interfere with the Tom Holland stuff anyway. But as it stands, this is a movie I could go my whole life without seeing, and I'd be completely fine about it, honestly. But let me know in the comments down below. Would you have liked to see an Amazing Spider-Man prequel movie with Kraven the Hunter and Chris Cooper as the Green Goblin? Let me know about it in the comments down below. Would you have liked to see more of Andrew Garfield and Gwen Stacy? I certainly would, so let me know what your opinion is as well. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with all of your friends and all your social media platforms, and I'll see all of you in the next video.